I've submitted to the story on this site before, but since then, I've had another experience. Here it goes. I'm in my late teens, and during the summer, I stay home alone. One day, around 11 a.m., I used the computer, and out in the hallway out of the corner of my eye, I saw a completely black figure, about 6 foot 5 inches tall, and very skinny. When I glimpsed around to make sure no one was in the house, the figure was gone. It has happened to me about 4 more times over the next 2 weeks. I started calling them the Shadow Woman. Then, one day, when I was in the kitchen, I saw another shadow man, but this time, when I looked around my shoulder, a can of soup fell onto the floor, and the window was closed, and the cat was in the basement. Then one day, I was with my friends in the woods. Keep in mind, these are small woods, and there have never been any hunters or trappers there. We were talking about ghost stories, and I told them about the Shadow Woman. A minute later, we heard a rustle in the bushes, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a Shadow Woman out of the corner. Then when I turned around to catch a glimpse, it was gone. I asked my friends if they saw that, and one of them said yes, and the rest looked at me like I was crazy. I'm not sure if these are spirits or just an overactive imagination, but usually, I don't imagine things like that. Since the experience in the woods, I haven't seen a shadow man since, but you never know. I could see one again anytime. Hello again. My name is Kara, and I have another story I would like to share. This encounter, or whatever it is called, took place in the kitchen. It was about midnight, or 1 in the morning. My mother was asleep. I was on the computer playing brain teaser or something, and my dog Susie, a collie, was lying next to my chair. As I was playing my game, Susie started to make a noise in between a bark and a growl. I looked to see what she was staring at, and she was looking in the kitchen. Our house is little, but cozy. I couldn't see anything, so I took it as attention-seeking and hushed her. About 10 minutes later, Susie was sitting in the corner directly across from where I sat, and she made a deep growling noise that was unnatural to me, and she showed her teeth, not at me, but towards the kitchen. Honestly, I didn't even want to look. I admit, I was very fearful at the time, and I thought I would see someone, like a burglar of some sort. I looked out of the corner of my eye. I saw a very, very large white dog. Looked like a wolf dog to me because it was so large. It had eyes as blue as the sky and fur as white as snow. It didn't look threatening, but intimidating. It just laid there by the recycling bin, staring at me. Susie whimpered and caught my attention. I looked at the corner of my eye, and the dog was gone. That night, everything was so still, quiet, freaky the way nothing seemed to be able to move, like a pause button had been invented to freeze the noise after the dog had vanished. I went to my room to lay down, but my room was piled with clothes, books, etc. So I decided to go to my mother's room to sleep since her bed was a king size and clean. The time passed by me as I laid there. 1:30 a.m., 2:30 a.m., 3:30 a.m., all the way to 4:30 a.m. I just stared at the wall with a background of my mother's snores. I glanced at my mom's door for a second, and there, perched on the door, was a dark cat figure. It had evil green eyes, fur as though I'd caught the dark glistening of nighttime. I stared at it for what seemed like 10 minutes. I rubbed my eyes, and it was gone. And it seemed as though one had played the sound again, like the mute button wouldn't work. I looked out my window, on my left, and saw a cat crossing the street, and I decided to doze off. But something didn't seem right. It was like the temperature dropped 20 degrees in the room. I didn't like it, and neither did Susie. She sleeps at the foot of my mother's bed. She gave me a very low growl and came over to lay next to me. I pet her for a minute and glanced at the hallway and saw what appeared to be an overgrown house cat. I fell asleep 10 minutes after that. I still don't know the connection between the dark cat figures and the white dog, but if you happen to know, I'd like to hear from you. Sorry if this was too long a story, and I hope you enjoyed reading it. One day last year, me and my friend were in my house on our own. I decided to make noodles for us to eat, so I started to prepare them when we heard noises upstairs, but we just continued chatting. About 2 minutes later, we heard it again and ignored it, once more thinking it was just the floorboards. Suddenly, about 5 minutes later, we heard it again, but louder. The sound was like there was someone in my house, walking around upstairs, opening and closing doors, but we were home alone, so we thought we'd go and check it out, but we were a little scared, so we both got knives in our hands just in case it was an intruder and crept up the stairs. When we got up there, we checked everywhere, even behind doors and under beds, but there was no one. We were now really freaked out, so we went downstairs and turned some music on, but we turned it up really loud and started to eat. Again, about 10 minutes later, we heard footsteps, but this time coming up and down the stairs, but not actually walking into the kitchen, just on the stairs. Now we were getting really scared, so we went outside with knives in our hands just to check our neighbors weren't in. I live in a semi-detached house, just in case it was them making the noise, but then I checked and remembered they were at their caravan for the weekend, so it couldn't have been them. So, we went inside again, and immediately after we sat down again, we heard a loud drop, as if someone had dropped and hit the floor. We decided we were going to go upstairs again, so we went outside again and found my friend's mom, and she came in and checked the house with us. We checked everywhere for about 5 minutes. When we were convinced there was no one there, she asked me if anything was missing, and I said no. Later that night, I was going to bed, and I noticed one of my cuddly toys was missing. Yes, I still have a cuddly toy. But what happened earlier that day didn't cross my mind, and I just assumed it was down the side of my bed, but I was too tired to look, and I just forgot about it. The next day, I was in my attic looking for something when my eye came across another thing. I went to look, and to my amazement, it was my cuddly toy. I am convinced that I'd never had it up there in the first place. I'd only been up there a few times before and never took my toy up. I'm still convinced to this day that it wasn't just me and my maid in my house that day, but another person as well. Just recently, a new boy moved in and has since become my friend. I never told him about that day, but one day, he came up to me and explained that he was sitting downstairs the night before and had heard what sounded like footsteps upstairs, and it stopped, but 5 minutes later, he heard a bang that sounded like something had been dropped and landed on the floor. Then, he went up to check and noticed his computer was turned on and logged him in, signed him into MSN, and started downloading a song. The only problem was, he had never heard of the song before, and he was home alone. He asked his parents if they knew anything, and they both had never heard the song either. His sister is disabled, so she couldn't have done it. We checked the internet and found a site that had death records of our area. We checked it out and typed in our street, and it found results of 3 people. 2 of them were mother and son, and the other was a girl who lived with her parents. But the boy, the girl, and the boy's mother had been out walking one day when they had been hit by a car, and all 3 died. The son and mother lived in my house, and the girl lived in my friend's house. This was very interesting to them, and we checked them out, and one of the children's interests had been listening to the band whose song had started to download on my friend's computer. We now believe our homes were haunted, but now, the spirits have moved on, and they only stayed because they wanted to have one last look at what used to be their childhood house. Thanks for reading. This story is just a collection of experiences I've had, and I don't know if they go together or make any sense at all. The first was when I was about 8, and me and some of my friends were out in my backyard telling ghost stories. All of a sudden, we heard a deep voice slowly calling our names. It seemed to come from behind a shed in the backyard, and we all ran away from it. We ran into the house and then calmed down, thinking it might have been my father, but then I realized my father was at work, and all of our neighbors were pretty up there in age, and I doubted they even knew our names. We were calming down in my room when I looked out the window, and about 200 feet away in an empty field, I saw the outline of what seemed to be a man but was totally black. But it was in the middle of the day. I couldn't even speak. I finally yelled as if it was walking away, and I think when I yelled, it turned and looked back at me. I never saw it again, and even writing about this is bringing tears to my eyes. The other experiences I've had were in the same room in my grandma's house. When I was young, I used to sometimes go to my grandmother's and stay for a weekend or a night. One night, I was sleeping, and I got up half asleep in some sort of confusion of hearing something in the hallway. I looked down the hall, and there seemed to be a shadow of a tall man against the curtains with moonlight shining through them. I wasn't scared like the first time. I actually felt like this was a man watching over me, and for some reason, I had a weird feeling it was my great-grandfather. The other time was when I was about 16. I was actually living in that room because I moved out of my parents' house temporarily. It was a typical night. I laid down to go to sleep, but was having some trouble. I finally started to get drowsy, and I rolled over onto my other side, and then, out of nowhere, I hear my name whispered urgently into my ear. I even felt the air. I jumped up, and no one was there. I had the door closed, but my grandpa was somewhat of a jokester, so I thought maybe he was pulling a prank. So, I got up and looked down the hall, and I saw him and my grandma in bed watching TV. He may be a prankster, but I doubt he can run that fast. I'm 18 now, and I haven't seen or heard anything weird since, but I also don't spend very much time at my grandma's house anymore. I know that many of you may be skeptical about the appearances of ghosts, apparitions, etc. And so was I, until one year, when I went to spend the summer with my father in Grand Coulee, Washington. I didn't ever think about ghosts until I had to babysit for our neighbors in an apartment complex that my father managed. I put the kids to bed. One was 3, the other 2, and there was also an infant child I was looking after. I put the 3 and 2-year-olds in their beds for the night, and the infant's crib was down in the living room with me. I just laid him in the crib when I heard a loud bang and then footsteps running across the 3-year-old's room. Now, she had a tendency to not do as she was told, but she normally stayed in her bed at night. But when I heard the footsteps, I assumed it was one of her cries for attention. So, I made my way up the stairs, trying to be as quiet as possible so I could catch her in the act. When I got to her room, she was sound asleep in her crib. So I went back downstairs, thinking it was my imagination. But about 10 minutes later, I heard the same thing. When I went back upstairs, she was still in her crib, only this time, she was sitting straight up, talking to someone on her windowsill. When she saw I was in there, she turned around and lifted her sippy cup up and said, "Kenny wants a cup too." I started feeling a little uncomfortable about this, so I called my dad from the upstairs phone. It's not what she said that made me do that though. It's what I saw. Now, the setup of the house has a light in the stairs hallway, so that the only shadow cast is at the bottom of the stairs. I was seeing shadows of a little, what looked to be a boy, at the top of the stairs, and I was the only one in the house besides the girl and the baby boy. The girls all have fairly long hair, and the shadow had very short hair. This shadow kept on dancing in a ritualistic Indian manner. There are a lot of Indians in Grand Coulee, and the people I babysat for are Indians. Anyway, my dad told me to get the kids and go outside, and he would meet me there. He was skeptical as he might be, but as soon as he stepped foot in the house, he heard what I was hearing. He checked things out, and when he and my stepmom got upstairs, she admittedly noticed something that made all of this a little scarier. You see, Roma, the lady I babysat for, was Catholic and hung crosses above each bedroom door. When I was up there, they were fine, but when they got up there, all the crosses were turned upside down. Now, what many don't know is that an upside down cross is a sign of the devil or his demons. Later, when she got home, she informed us that she had been trying to get rid of the spirit for years. She tried moving, but the ghost must have attached itself to something in the house, or maybe to even one of the children. So, She finally had a priest come bless her home. That only made it angrier than it already was, I guess, because about a year later, her new house caught on fire, killing the infants I once babysat, who we like to call Puddles, and her newborn child. The police could not find the cause of the fire, but the only thing that survived were the crosses above each door. The 2 girls in Roman doorway crosses were fine, but the crosses above the infant's room were turned upside down once again. Perhaps the first time was a warning, or maybe he was just playing games with us. I'll never understand. The only thing I know is that I won't ever tamper with the other side again. I've not told anyone this before, due to the fact that it is hard to believe, and plus, it happened to me when I was young. I do not know if you would consider it a ghost encounter or not, but I'm going to tell you the happenings to me anyway. I live in West Virginia, and when I was 9 years old, my brother and I shared a room. We had 2 beds in the room, separated by a window in the middle of them. We had settled down for bed this particular night to go to sleep. I could not have been asleep long when I woke to a rapping-like sound at our window. I laid in my bed, not moving a muscle for some reason, and I just could not move. I tried my best to move, and even scream my brother's name, but could not. And the weird thing is, what was going to happen had not even happened yet. While I was going through this state of mind, I guess I could hear knocking on the window from the outside. Whatever it was would knock twice on the window, wait a minute, and knock twice again. After this went on for a while, I was finally able to move on, and when I got up to look out the window to see what was knocking, all I could see were these 2 big red, circular eyes looking right back at me. I was petrified. I went right back into the state where I could not move. It was like those eyes had me hypnotized. When I was finally able to move, I just laid back down. The whole night the knocking continued, 2 knocks at a time, and a few minutes later, the same thing. This went on for nights, and the same thing was there. Every night, when I would look out the window, there would be these 2 red hypnotizing eyes. This went on for about a week, and then all of a sudden, it just stopped, and it never happened again after that. When I got older, I started hearing stories about a creature in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. They called it the Mothman, and every time I would hear one of these stories, it would be described as having big red eyes. Then there was really no doubt in my mind that what was visiting me and my brother all these nights was in fact this creature, because when I was 9, we lived in Bluefield, West Virginia. To this day, I've never forgotten those nights when I was visited by what I believe is that creature. A lot of weird things go on around our home. My grandparents' house is also a little strange. I've experienced many things numerous times at both my house and my grandparents' house. First of all, when I was 6 years old, I was awakened by a raspy humming sound. I sat up in my bed, wiped my eyes, and looked to the left of my bed. Sitting there in a rocking chair with a baby was a woman dressed in an old-fashioned type gown. She was also wearing a bonnet and had her face turned towards the baby. I thought it may have been my mom, so I whispered "Mom," and when the lady in the chair looked at me, her eyes glowed red. So I yelled louder for my mom to come to me, and when she came to the door, the woman disappeared, but this chair was still there, very faintly, and rocking slowly. I never told anyone except my mom about this, and when my younger cousin was 6, she reported seeing the same exact thing to me. One winter when the electric was off, my cousin accompanied me as I went to take a shower in the old house. Because it was the only one with a gas water heater, I ran nothing but hot water into the bathtub and got in. The water wasn't scalding hot, but very warm. I heard whispering and asked my cousin if it was her. She said no. I heard it again, only louder this time. I became alarmed and listened more closely. This time it was very loud and very clear. The whispering was the Lord's Prayer. I was very scared and I couldn't make myself move. The water became very cold and the whispering grew louder. I told my grandparents and parents what happened and they shrugged it off. My grandparents reported hearing gospel music, preaching, the Lord's Prayer in the old house. My papa was going to take a nap one day and felt the bed move and saw an indentation as if someone were sitting beside him on the bed. Many other things happened, but these are only a few. If anyone is interested, I'll post more later.
I worked as a security guard there when it was closed down for a while. It is an old hotel casino. I worked a graveyard shift and I patrolled the entire place alone. Several times I would hear doors and large object movements on other floors and sometimes nearby. Never thought much about it or jumped at any menacing ideas. I was used to sounds in the dead of night for no reason. Then one night, while wandering about in the long hallway, I began to notice a strange reverberation in my footsteps, so I stopped. The sound reverb stopped a split second after mine. I immediately turned thinking someone was fooling about, but no one was there. So I continued my pace, and still the sound started up again. I thought maybe it was an echo of sorts, so I walked more loudly. Still I heard the sound, but it wasn't at an increased sound level. I ran then stopped, and the sound shuffled to a stop at a different rhythm than I had. I've been a martial artist for close to 20 years and feel I have a pretty firm grasp of life energies, and proven it appears that I can sense others' presence through this energy. That night, I felt something standing there. So I broke into a full sprint for a few feet, stopped and turned to still try to find some giveaway of a prank or self-delusion. When I turned, I felt a presence standing face to face with me. My adrenaline skyrocketed and I bolted through the end of the hallway and down the stairwell. I heard the footsteps trying to keep pace with me until I had burst through the heavy metal door at the end of the hall. From that night on, I could feel a presence moving from floor to floor, which I always avoided from there on. Keep in mind that no pranksters could have gotten in, and had they would have shown up on the other security systems.
Have I got a freaky story for you? I was at my dad's house in bed. I fell asleep very slowly. Suddenly, I woke up, looked at the clock and saw it was 12:36. I turned my head back and it froze the way it was. Not that I had a choice. I couldn't move, I couldn't talk. All I could do was breathe. A horrible, ugly, bearded figure suddenly rose about 3 feet above me and faded away. About a pound of sand fell on me out of nowhere. In the morning, I woke up and it was gone. As if that wasn't enough, something happened the next night. My whole family, including me, was eating dinner. My father asked me to take his trash can down to his office in the basement. On my way down there, I passed a chair. In that chair was my oldest sister twirling around singing. Of course I was thinking about what had happened the night before and paid her no mind. But when I was going back through, she was gone. In the chair was a pound of sand.
If you reach the end of this video, then you realize that you were not annoyed enough to watch this whole entire thing. And for that, I salute you, which means you'll have to share this around to all the social media platform sites like Facebook, so 9K can be just around the corner. The last time I checked, our subscriptions have risen to a total of 8.k thousand in, well, okay, whatever. I meant to say 8.7k thousand, but you guys know I never make any sense, so I'll just keep that in there. Anyway, guys, I'd like to thank my friends, Uncultured Gamer and The Walking Virus, for helping me on this video. Just so you guys know, The Walking Virus is a great narrator, even though he's not really a narrator technically, he's a gamer, but you know what I mean. But yeah, if you like gaming stuff and you love live streams, and he does a heck of a lot of them, go check his channel out. I'll leave it in the description below. Also, I know Uncultured Gamer's audio isn't the best. He isn't a narrator. He's not even a YouTuber. He's just a fan that I wanted on my channel, and we created something special for you guys. So please don't be so harsh on him because, you know, he's an amazing kid, and he's only 14 years old. So please be nice to him. Don't rip his heart out or anything like that. But yeah, guys, I can't believe it. 9K and 10K are just around the corner. It's happening so fast, lightning quick, and I have all you guys to thank for that. So really, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate what you've done for my channel and what you've done for us as we grow as a whole. I don't know. I'm trying to think of ways to actually sound smarter than I really am, but it's not really working, Shirley. And I don't know if your guys' name is Shirley, but whatever. We can have fun with a Shirley person. I don't know. I will never know. As always, just let me know in the comments below what you feel about these stories. Like, what's going on in your head when you're listening to these stories, how you feel about these stories, blah, 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 yada, 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 and all that good stuff. Because really, guys, I really want to hear from you. I really want you to hit that like button and just be the most amazing person to me by just giving me a hug, a virtual hug. That's like giving me a virtual hug by liking it. You know, it's like, oh, that was weird sounds. I'm not even going to get into why I did that in the first place, but whatever. It's not even, it's spontaneous. Who cares? And I'm not going to say anything else. You guys know from the bottom of my heart how much I appreciate you commenting and actually interacting with me, because I love engaging with you guys and actually commenting with you guys, you know, just to talk about what's going on in each video and stuff like that. And it's just a joy to be your narrator and all this and that. And I'm tempted to be really silly right now, but I'm not going to do that, because even though I tripped up on my words once again, it's not going to happen. I became silly. Whatever, who cares? That's just in my nature. Who freaking cares? Anyway, guys, good night, good morning, and I will see you in the next one. Love you so much, and Boogie2988.